cutting of Season 2 of House of the Dragon to 8 episodes has kind of had an unintended effect on the wider fanbase's feelings towards the upcoming adaptation of the Dunk and Egg novellas. As we know, the second season of House of the Dragon was reduced from 10 episodes to 8, with the exact timeline and circumstances as to why still a little bit hazy. But what we can say is it certainly negatively impacted the season in terms of pacing and writing, with events that should have been in Season 2 now pushed into Season 3, resulting in a season finale that was disappointing to many viewers. The truth is, that's because it was never really meant to be the season finale, rather the setup for the season finale. But all this has kind of started a discussion online around the current trend in modern television, where episode counts per season do in fact seem to be getting lower. For example, for HBO, a 10-episode season used to be the standard for their flagship shows, perhaps not so much for limited series. It wasn't the rule, there were exceptions, but for years it's what people had come to expect. However, in the last 2 or 3 years, we started to see episode counts per season drop. In HBO's case, 8 episodes per season is starting to look like it's becoming the new normal. Now, there are many reasons as to why this is the case, but the reality comes down to one huge factor: the sheer cost to produce high-quality TV in the current market, meaning that budgets won't stretch to 10 episodes like they used to, and simply the production time. With how complicated the production of TV has become now, it's taking longer and longer to produce shows than it ever did before, with it now becoming commonplace to produce a single season every 2 years, where it used to be year on year. This phenomenon is not just limited to HBO, but most premium networks and streamers have begun to do this. I find Doctor Who is a really good case study for this. Since coming back in 2005, 13 episodes per season was normal, but then in around 2018, as budgets started to creep up, the show could not afford to produce 13 episodes per season, with it starting to fall somewhere between 6 and 8 episodes. So this isn't just something that's happening to HBO, but across media internationally. I've read a few studies that have traced this new model back to COVID, with many producers still not operating back to pre-COVID levels, perhaps seeing the reduced output as an effective cost-saving strategy. It's not a surprise we've seen fewer episodes per season and 2-year production cycles since COVID, so there might actually be something in this link. But I do think people understood these last few years coming out of COVID why production has shifted the way it has. But it very much seems that the average viewer is starting to lose interest in these shorter shows. No one wants to wait 2 years for 8 episodes, which is a common thread a lot of comments I have seen about this seem to share. From what I've been told by some former colleagues who still work in production in both the UK and the US, a lot of studios have become so risk averse given the current financial state of the film industry that many production companies are still operating as if COVID was still preventing production practices from returning to normal. A more cynical take I've heard is that thanks to COVID, production companies learned they could produce less content, costing less to produce, with little impact on their bottom line in terms of profits. Now, I don't personally love 8-episode seasons, but if the show is written with this in mind, it doesn't necessarily have to have an impact on the end quality of the show that much. The issue with House of the Dragon Season 2 is it seems that the call from HBO to cut it down to 8 episodes came very late into pre-production, when the 10-episode season had mostly been written with production imminently starting. Thus, very quickly, Ryan Condal and co. had to rewrite the season with 2 less episodes, which ultimately resulted in the odd pacing of Season 2, as well as the taped together season finale, which, like we have said, didn't feel much like a finale, because in reality, it was never meant to be one, with the Battle of the Gullets and the Fall of King's Landing, that was planned to be the finale, pushed back to the start of Season 3. Now, I've made a video about the negative impact this will have on Season 3 and 4, and how there are countless issues with trying to fit the story left to tell into 16 episodes. But for the context of this video, the end result is a Season 2 of House of the Dragon, where fan reception was mixed at best. And I know you could probably make an argument for negative. How does this relate back to A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms? Well, we've known the next Game of Thrones spin-off adapting the Dunk and Egg novellas, called A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, was going to have a 6-episode first season since about April, after George R. R. Martin suggested so in a blog post. But it seemed the wider fan base was not aware of this information. Thus, with recent PR posts from HBO and other mainstream media sources about the filming of the season wrapping, many fans learnt of this low episode count for the first time. Now, the reaction to this was one of disdain from many, who saw this as HBO once again reducing the number of episodes per season of a show. This was compounded given how little time had passed after the discontent with the reduced Season 2 for House of the Dragon. I would say a majority of comments and replies I saw across social media were negative, with many stating they were refusing to watch another shortened season, which to be honest does actually concern me a great deal, because Dunk and Egg is perhaps my favourite element of A Song of Ice and Fire. I absolutely love the characters and the story being told, and so I really want the show to do well, and I want as many fans as possible to experience the story. If you've actually read the Dunk and Egg novellas, you might find yourself in a similar position as I did when it was first announced that Season 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms would have 6 episodes, thinking, how the hell are they going to be able to stretch the story to 6 hours of television? The simple truth is that 6 episodes might actually be too many. The first novella, The Hedge Knight, is at the end of the day a short novella and not a full-on 600-page novel like the main books. Not only is the story much shorter than the main series, but it's much more narrowly focused, with Duncan being the only point of view character, with the narrative really focusing around the relationship between Duncan and Aegon. Obviously, there is a lot of background narrative going on as well, such as what's going on with Bloodraven, the Succession, and of course, the Blackfires, but it's still very much Duncan's story. It's not like Game of Thrones or even House of the Dragon, where we're going to be jumping from location to location multiple times each episode. Yes, of course, Dunk and Egg will have different locations, but a hell of a lot of the runtime will be spent on the tawny grounds in and around Ashford. So, in that respect, the scale of the story is much smaller. The 6 episodes at what I'm guessing is going to be an hour each might in fact be too much, and I wonder how they will stretch out the little source material they have. So while on the surface, this fan pushback to the show only having 6 episodes is understandable, in this case, specifically when it comes to Dunk and Egg, I do believe it's kind of a non-issue. If you know Dunk and Egg, you know it's not going to be the issue to worry about in terms of adapting the story from page to screen. When it first started to come out that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms was in development, a lot of fans assumed it would be a movie, given the length of the source material. I always had a feeling though it would be a TV show, given that's kind of HBO's remit. And if you go back to last year, I was predicting that HBO might adapt a similar model to what the BBC did a few years ago with Sherlock, having 3-episode seasons, but have each of these episodes be around 90 minutes plus. That way, you had enough time to adapt the story and tell it without overinflating it and having to stretch it too thin. So yeah, 6 episodes, while not unexpected, is not what many fans thought would happen. So, if we assume each episode will be 1 hour, that's more than enough time to tell the story in its entirety. In fact, there are some fans who didn't quite understand what the announcement was and believed they were adapting all 3 published Dunk and Egg novellas into 6 episodes, which if I'm honest is actually doable. But no, it has been confirmed we are getting each novella per season. In fact, they're going to have to expand the stories in each of the novellas to make them work over 6 episodes per season. When it comes to the first novella that will make up Season 1, The Hedge Knight, I suspect they will flesh out the story and roles of the likes of Daeron and Aerion, making Aerion even more villainous than he is in the book. I suspect we will also spend a lot more time with both Baelor Breakspear and Maekar, with them apart from the main story, to build up their relationship, so the events at the conclusion of the story hits the audience even harder. I also have a personal theory that they may even find a way to introduce Bloodraven into Season 1, helping to set up the Blackfire elements that will be a key part of Season 2 and 3. I only half-heartedly believed this idea until recently, but the cameo of Bloodraven after the finale of Season 2 of House of the Dragon, to me at least, might be a suggestion he might have a role in Dunk and Egg Season 1. It could even be possible that the actor playing Bloodraven in House of the Dragon is the same they have cast for Bloodraven in Dunk and Egg, but if that's the case, I don't think we've officially heard anything yet. I'm not sure how all this works out in terms of production timing and etc. But if we end up with Bloodraven being introduced during Season 1, it would not surprise me at all. I also have a feeling the show might also be a backdoor pilot for a possible Blackfire spin-off show, with HBO seeing how the audience reacts to the Blackfire elements of Dunk and Egg, and to a story that's a little less action-packed with, well, frankly, no dragons, which are one of the biggest expenses House of the Dragons had to deal with, and has been a huge weight around its neck, given the amount of resources they've taken to bring it to life. But all this talk of expanding the story poses one key risk that fans point out when arguing that 6 episodes is too many. There is a risk these new elements water down the existing story and negatively affect the pace of the show, with it ending up feeling a lot slower and drawn out. So yes, I think the initial reaction to Dunk and Egg having a 6 episodes first season is understandable by the wider fan base, given the issues surrounding the reduction of House of the Dragon's second season, as well as current industry trends leaning towards lower episode counts. I think given what the story of Dunk and Egg is, novellas, 6 episodes is more than enough time to tell the story properly. This isn't going to be the issue House of the Dragon faces, where it's going to have to condense too much content into too few episodes. And at the end of the day, even if there's any risk in terms of episode count, it's much more likely going to come from there being too many episodes, rather than too few.